Congressman, thanks so much for being with us.
And I stand by that statement.
Well, let me begin on the Epstein files and where things stand. Have you had a chance to view the unredacted files?
I have no interest in seeing this smut. And as it's displayed, I'm just so glad that people who are engaging in these activities, including Hillary Clinton's husband, I hope that eventually the truth comes out. I mean, my goal is to put it all out there, and they may. But for 4 years, the Biden administration, as you know, did absolutely nothing. And the only person to keep the issue alive are President Trump and his supporters. And I'm glad that people who were doing nefarious things with Epstein, whether it be you've seen some of the horrific commentary and then some of the photos. They're exposed for who they are. And this is the realities that that's faced now that the files are finally released because of the efforts of the Justice Department led by President Trump and Pam Bondi.
So the Clintons are saying, look, we will testify. We want to do so in public, transparency in terms of the hearing. Let's do it live, airing it on SiriusXM and on cable channels and on C-SPAN. What's your view of that?
I have no problem. Again, the more transparency, the better. I have no problem in testifying in private or in public. But clearly, given the number of photographs that Bill Clinton is in, they have a little bit more to say than, of course, others. But that said, I'm focused on what really matters to people by listening to your show. Is what the great news is that interest rates are down, inflation's down, the stock market is up, gas prices are down. We have a border that's secure, but that's where I've been focused. But I'm glad they finally exposed Epstein and people who are taken in by this monster are exposed, and they're going to have to deal with the consequences.
Well, Congressman, let's talk about jobs and the economy because it's been a bipartisan issue. We are dealing nationwide with a housing crisis. It is becoming unaffordable for many people to buy a home. Now the average age is in your late 30s or early 40s, especially in metropolitan areas. And of course, Florida, among the fastest growing states in the country where housing prices are going through the roof. What is the role of the government? How do you try to change the trajectory when it comes to home prices and home affordability and basically the inventory of homes that seems to be shrinking, not growing?
Look, it's a real challenge. I couldn't agree with you more. As you know, and from 21 to 25, the interest rates went from under 3% to over 7%. Where I live, that's about $1,200 more for the average home per month that they're paying in interest payments. The good news is that interest rates have ticked down a bit, but we need to do more. And the good news is in a bipartisan fashion, as you know, last week I serve on that committee, the Financial Services Committee. We are addressing it in a bipartisan fashion. We actually passed it 390 to 9. And what we're trying to do, of course, is face the reality. This is a supply and demand issue. We need to create more supply of homes. That's what really drives down costs. And we look for redundant bureaucratic costs like permitting, et cetera, that could cause housing prices to go up. And so with the combination of interest rates coming down and all, those of us trying to reduce some of that red tape or cost of government, we're optimistic that we can increase the supply. But I've got to add one last thing. Remember, 10 million people came into this country illegally during the Biden years, and that's obviously going to create more demand, and that's another mitigating factor. But we're all in this together. I couldn't agree more, and that's why I'm so proud of the bipartisan support that we had in the House of Representatives so that we can find solutions as opposed to pointing fingers.
You said on the House floor, though, and again, these are your words, that we cannot regulate our way out of this problem. We have to build our way out of it. Specifically, what needs to happen?
Well, I think, as I mentioned, we need to deregulate our way out of it in its own way, in the sense that if we are reducing the governmental costs, again, and I'm not sure if you ever built a home, but you've got to go through all these permit processes and
we all know. So, we've all dealt with that, yes.
Yeah, so that when you reduce that cost, that's one less expense that the builder has to have. And when you streamline things like manufactured homes, there's these new technologies that are coming on board today that are winners. And so we're cautiously optimistic that we can reduce some of that regulation. And then as you're seeing prices at least no longer going up like they were in years past, as inflation's under 2.5%, that's a win. But again, and if we can lower those interest rates because we're being more responsible, these are all mitigating factors that should help the housing market. And we're even looking at things like saying, hey, if you have a 401k and you're a first-time home buyer, why not let yourself use those dollars, because that's really the biggest investment you'll make your entire life.
We're talking to Congressman Mike Haridopolos from Florida's 8th Congressional District. And Congressman, I want to turn to former senator who was a fierce critic of some of the leaderships of Viktor Orbán, now as Secretary of State, is praising the Hungarian Prime Minister. As you know, he is trailing in a number of polls. There is an election in Hungary later this spring, and the Secretary of State was in Budapest yesterday. This is what he had to say about Viktor Orbán.
We want you to continue because we want this economy to prosper. We want this country to do well. It's in our national interest, especially as long as you're the prime minister and the leader of this country. It's in our national interest that Hungary be successful. It helps America, and obviously it helps you.
But Congressman, is it unusual for an American diplomat to weigh in on domestic politics inside Hungary?
Well, it's Marco Rubio is an extraordinary Secretary of State. You probably saw the fantastic speech that he made where he wants to bring Europe and the United States closer. We've had a difficult relationship because of some of the challenges we all face with the China threat, let alone the Ukraine. And I thought Secretary of State Rubio did a fabulous job of putting it together why Europe and the United States should be in concert, not only economically, militarily, of course, culturally, they're in line. And we all stuck together, at least the Western European nations, against communism. And he believes that Orbán is one of those figures who can bring that Europe together and thwart some of the threats that all the Western alliance faces at this time.
Congressman, as you know, it began in Texas with the push to get 5 additional seats for the Republicans. California followed suit. Now Virginia, Maryland, other states are following suit. And Florida will be dealing with the congressional redistricting later this spring. First of all, your reaction, because, I mean, let's be honest, both sides bear responsibility for this. It began in Texas, and now there's been a domino effect between Democratic and Republican states.
Well, let me just make sure I set the record straight. This all started in New York State in 2023. If you recall, this is where New Yorkers, led by Jeffries and others, were trying to redraw the lines in New York State. So I've even put that up on my Twitter account that shows the stories that started this whole process. Of course, the president was trying to go tit for tat. I don't disagree. I'm not sure what will happen in Florida, but I'd like to see us, once this year is complete, say, let's stick with the census. Let's make it where every 10 years the lines are drawn. But in this place right now we're in, it's a difficult one. And each state is looking at their particular circumstance. We've seen, of course, the chaos in Virginia, Maryland, California, yes, and Texas. And this is what we're facing right now because it all started in the state of New York in 2023.
And as you know, there are now, up to 30 House Republicans either retiring or seeking higher office. What's the next Congress going to look like?
Well, it's going to be some fresh faces, no doubt. I mean, there were over 30 Republicans and 30 Democrats that were new last year. I think what I've tried to do is make sure that we're having these vigorous debates about the issues, but there's also areas we can find common ground. I work very closely, as I just mentioned, on housing issues, space issues, environmental issues with Democrats because there's a lot of common ground there. Obviously, we're going to disagree on things like taxes. But the good news is a year after President Trump was sworn into office, we have a stronger economy. Unemployment is down. As you know, we gained about 180,000 jobs last month. We know that interest rates are down, the stock market's up, gas prices are down, and of course, foreign investment is up. But let's all hope for the sake of America that we can continue in this positive trend. And of course, the elections will take care of themselves.
This has been year one and change for you. Is the job what you expected?
It is a challenge. There's a lot of back and forth partisanship, and I could be guilty of it at times too. I hate to admit, but I just try to do as a professor. I'm a history teacher by trade, and I try to kind of lay out what I believe in and try to be as transparent as possible, and always make sure our voters through town halls and a lot of meetings stay in touch. But it's an incredible honor to be in Congress, and that's why I'm trying to find some common ground solutions on the committee that I chair, which is space. And we're incredibly excited that, of course, we'll have astronauts going around the moon for the first time since 1972, and we are winning the space race. But I hope we can all win on the economy. The affordability issue is huge. And if we can drive down costs, everybody wins. Doesn't matter if you're Democrat, Republican, or independent. And that's what we're exclusively focused on the domestic side. And we're glad to see we've got a secure border. And hopefully we'll see some progress here in the Middle East.
But as you know, the polls indicate that a vast majority of Americans don't think that the economy is better today. What kind of headwinds does that give your party heading into the midterm elections?
Well, I agree. We can always do better, but I think the numbers do speak for themselves. I know that sometimes the spin on things that the economy is not as good as it was once, but remember, unemployment is down and interest rates are down. Your 401k is probably up about 20%. And you're seeing, I think, a lot of foreign investment, which is good for our country. But it's still a challenging economy out there. We hope that as you probably saw, the inflation rate is under 2.5%. But it doesn't mean those prices didn't go up in the 4 years that Joe Biden was president. And we're going to try to do everything we can by doing the things like we did on affordable housing, which is living within the realities of the economy. The more supply that we create, the more it drives down costs. And hopefully we can find some Democrats to work with us on those proposals. And that's also why we reduced taxes on tips over time, and 85% of the people on Social Security won't have Social Security tax anymore. So we are putting more money back into people's pockets wherever we can.
Congressman, thank you so much for being with us. You're back next week. And oh, by the way, the shutdown continues for the Department of Homeland Security.
That does, and we're hoping the Democrats will come on board and make sure we have cameras for those workers on DHS and ICE. And also, we need more training. I couldn't agree more. And hopefully we can end this shutdown because these people are working hard without getting paid right now. And let's hope we can all come together. That's my goal.
Mike Haridopolos, Republican from Florida, the 8th District. Congressman, thank you again.
Thanks again for the opportunity. Bye now.